All right, so hopefully you can see my screen. I'll have the chat pulled up. So if you have a question, I'll try to address it as we go. Sometimes it can be difficult to do that, to keep up, but at the end, there's some time for questions too. So if I don't get to your question right away, I'll try to cover it towards the end. And if you have any questions that are either not relevant to other townships, or you're just too shy to ask, or it doesn't cover today's topic, whatever it may be, my information will be at the end of this, and you can call me or email me whenever you need. All right, today we'll be talking about reorganization meetings. It is the beginning of the year. Happy New Year. So this is a good time to discuss what those will look like, kind of make a plan for the township in the next coming year. But first, I'm going to go over kind of MAT updates and what those look like, and then we'll dive into reorg meetings and the purpose of those, when we should hold them, the agenda items, which covers most of this, and then also any questions towards the end. All right, so MAT updates. The only thing I really want to cover on today is the Township Day at the Capitol, and that's coming up on January 27th of this month. So it's coming up quick, and we're really excited because there's no cost to you this year. We really want township officers to attend and encourage that to happen. So there's no cost. And the rooms are at a discounted rate if you use our name. So it's a really good opportunity to kind of get in touch with your legislators, let them know what issues you're concerned about, and kind of get some face time with them. If you're nervous, don't worry. We have scripts for you. We can attend meetings with you. If you're really weary about going on your own, we really have it planned out. So don't be nervous. It's a really good opportunity to get some face time at the Capitol, and make sure that we have a big group as a collective, so that our voice as townships can be heard in that big Capitol building. Pre-registration closes on Monday, January 20th. So make sure you try to get registered before that. All registration information is on our website. So if you need it, contact me and I can send you the information. Otherwise, it is on our website, or I can point you to where that's located. All right, reorg meetings. So the purpose of a reorganization meeting is to kind of just set the plan for the year. So they're not required by law. The board's not required to hold these, but there are several organizational matters that have to be addressed in preparation for the upcoming year. So if you don't address them in a reorg meeting, you'll want to make sure that you address them at some point throughout the year, or at the very beginning of the year at the very least. So reorganizations, most towns hold them from my understanding, and it's just a really good opportunity to set the tone for the year and make sure that everybody's on the same page, while also getting some of those organizational matters out of the way. And you'll want to make sure that you're following all state laws, right? It's a good opportunity to check back in with the township's requirements and make sure that they're meeting all of those. When are reorganization meetings held? Typically, reorg meetings are held after the annual township election. So towns with November elections commonly hold the reorg meeting at the beginning of the year, at the first meeting in January following their election, and then townships with March elections hold it at the first meeting after that election. We're going to go through a few agenda items. Again, this meeting isn't required to be held by law. So none of these items are required to be held at the reorg meeting, but it's just kind of a really good blueprint for you guys to have, to make sure that you're covering all the necessary requirements and that you're kind of taking a good look at the township. So I just made a list of kind of what should be included in that agenda, what I recommend, and go from there. You can switch up this agenda to fit your township, add things, maybe take out things that aren't relevant to you, but this is just kind of a general blueprint. First, we'll talk about swearing in newly elected officers. So officers can be sworn in outside of a meeting. It doesn't have to happen in a meeting, but some townships choose to administer the oath of office at the beginning of the reorg meeting. It's super common that that happens. Officers elected in March elections or appointed to a township office must take oath within 10 days of receiving their certificate of election or appointment to a township office. For elections held in November, the oath must be taken just before assuming office, and that's outlined in Minnesota Statute 367.25, both of those. So it's always on the individual officer's responsibility to ensure that they file the oath of office with the clerk in that recommended or required time frame. It's not on the township itself. It's a responsibility of that specific officer. And if they don't do that, they could be impersonating a public officer, which is an issue. So you want to make sure that you are following the proper procedure to do that. And then you'll want to ensure that all town documents, information, materials are transferred to any new officer elected into office. Remember, failure to do that and hand over town records and property and other relevant material to successors is a misdemeanor under Minnesota Statute 367.01. All right, next you'll want to establish rules and procedures for the year. So the board should adopt a motion to appoint a chairperson and a vice chairperson, though that can be changed at any meeting if necessary, or if you would like to, that chairperson doesn't want it anymore, whatever it may be. But you should appoint those at the reorg meeting as it comes up. That person serves as the presiding officer over these board meetings, kind of gives order to the meetings and ensures they run efficiently. They also sign documents, contracts, and checks for the town, and as authorized by the board, not on their own. And then remember that although the chairperson has extra duties laid out in statute, they also have the same exact voting rights as any other board member. So they'll still have to work collaboratively as a board to make decisions on the township's best interests. They don't have a super vote or an extra vote or anything like that, but they are the person who is signing the paperwork for the township in many instances. All right. And then you'll want to establish your regular meeting schedule. So the town is required to maintain a meeting schedule of regular meetings on file at their primary office. It should also be posted in the town's primary posting location. So I'll talk about that in a bit as well, but it must include regular board meetings, but it also could include meetings of other groups where a quorum of supervisors is attending for another reason, such as a town planning commission or things along that line. You could include those on the regular meeting schedule as well, just to let people know when those are. When you're creating a regular meeting schedule, make sure you pay attention to holidays, because if you can't conduct business on that day, then you'll have to end up rescheduling that meeting, which will require you to provide notice as if it's a special meeting. So if you want to avoid doing that, make sure you're paying attention to when those holidays are when you're creating that regular meeting schedule. All right, and then you'll also want to designate an official place where public notices will be posted. So I talked about posting that meeting schedule. You'll also want to designate where that is. most townships already have that designated, but if you want to switch it up, change it, or just remind people of where that's located, now is a good time to do it. A lot of these agenda items can be done really quickly, but it's just a really good way to make sure everybody's on the same page and everybody's aware of where they can find information for the township. So you are required to have a location within the town for posting legal notices, and make sure that those facilities are available for posting notices, right? So people can see them. And you'll also want to designate an official newspaper. Again, many townships have probably already done this, but if you want to change your newspaper, or you want to just remind people of what newspaper that is, you can do that at the reorg meeting. And this is for posting notices, or publishing legal notices, excuse me. And there's a couple of purposes why you would need to publish legal notices. I have a whole separate presentation on when that is required. So if you are curious as to what a official newspaper must look like, or when you have to publish notices, I really encourage you to take a look at that past Township Tuesday that covers all of that information, because there's a lot of details to that. And then the next agenda item is to approve a township depository or bank where the township funds will be kept. My youngest stepson is reading Harry Potter right now, so I put a picture of Gringotts Bank up there. Unfortunately, that is probably not available to designate as a township depository, but the town has the authority to designate a bank, and the designation must be made in writing and include all terms related to deposits. And then the town chair and clerk must sign that document. You'll want to verify who's signing for the checks, the clerk, the treasurer, and the chair, who those people are. Some of them might be new officers, so you want to make sure that information is up to date. If you want guidance for setting policies for handling funds, we do have guidance on our information in our information library under document F3000. Next, you'll want to make decisions on holidays. So towns can determine whether they want to recognize 2 different holidays as holidays, and that is Indigenous Peoples Day, which is previously Christopher Columbus Day, and then the Friday after Thanksgiving. If those days are not designated as holidays, then you can hold public business on those days. If you do not choose to say that they're not holidays, then you cannot hold public business. So you just want to make sure you make that decision for whatever makes sense for your township. And then you want to set roles and compensation for the year for township employees and board members and officers, including a mileage rate, which is specified in Minnesota Statute 367.05. So it's what the township is paying its officers and employees is really up to the township and really individual to each township. So we don't have a record of what township officers are making or anything like that. It is really personal to the township and what they want to assign for those roles. Boards should review their policies regarding authorized expenses as well and reimbursements. Oh shoot, the mileage rate now. A question in the chat is, what is the mileage rate now? The mileage rate now I think is 60 cents. Don't quote me on that. I'd have to take a look. I'm sorry. It changed this last year, so I'm not sure. I'd have to double check on that. I'm sorry. But boards should also review their policies regarding authorized expenses. And then, thank you. Lori said federal rate is 70 cents per mile. One question was, can we frame a resolution to not recognize those holidays until another resolution is passed that differs from that decision? Currently, we've been passing a resolution every year, although it's been the same for 10 years. So the statute doesn't specify how often you need to say that you're not recognizing those holidays, but I would suggest you pass a resolution every year just so it's clear that you will not be holding public, or you will be holding public business on those days, and so there's no issue. So I would recommend to continue doing that. Okay, so supervisors can be assigned to serve on a board or commission, like a planning commission or a fire board, and you want to review any spending authority that's granted to those officers, and whether you need an update to that spending authority to reduce or increase that spending authority, and what that looks like. For example, town boards often allow road supervisors to approve work up to a specific dollar amount between meetings for tasks that can't be delayed until the next meeting. So you want to just revisit what that dollar amount looks like. We have a compensation policy. If you're kind of lost on what that looks like and you want to make sure that you're following all of the requirements, and that document is TO 4000 in our information library. All right, next is to approve contracts and review potential conflicts of interest. So if you know you have contracts with vendors that you renew annually, or you need new contracts, kind of discuss what those look like. And then if you have contracts that are entered into with a township officer, you want to make sure that it fits into an exception for the conflict of interest laws. So remember that township officials are prohibited from being a party to or financially benefiting from any sale, lease, or other contract in which the official is authorized to participate in any manner. So if your township officer is performing work for the township, they must fit into a specific exception in order to take on that contract. One exception that's often relied on is if the contract does not require sealed bidding, meaning if the contract is valued at less than $175,000. If you want to rely on any of the exceptions, the board must unanimously vote, with the interested officer abstaining, to award that contract to the township officer. Award the contract by resolution. And then every time the officer submits a claim for payment, they'll also want to submit an affidavit relaying certain information with that claim for payment. Now, we have information on what that looks like, and also a sample resolution and affidavit in our document number C6000. So you can revisit that to make sure you're following those procedures. Next is to approve and create committees. So I talked a little bit about giving those committees funds, or setting those meetings in the regular meeting schedule, but you want to create or get rid of any committees that you deem necessary for the township. And then let the assign members to these committees and ensure those members know responsibilities, and then explain the duties of that committee and how often they must be carried out and when they need to be keeping in contact with the board, just so there's no confusion as to what that communication looks like and what the committee's purpose is. I have a question in the chat. So we have a supervisor that has a dirt company. We need dirt for the cemetery. A conflict of interest form and him not voting is enough for us to get dirt from him. So yes, if the contract is under that $175,000, then you can likely rely on that exception there. And so you'll want to do a resolution authorizing that contract, and then have him submit an affidavit every time he submits a claim for payment. And again, a sample of those are on our website under C6000. All right, next you'll want to review any township policies. Anytime you revisit the township policies, or maybe lack thereof, make sure you include related data intention, access policies, road management, snow plowing, those kinds of things, sign inspection. Any policies that you have, you want to take a look at them and make sure they're up to date. And with that, the board should also review its administrative policy. This is a really good policy to implement if you haven't already. I know towns face a range of issues regarding conduct for their meetings. So this is a really good policy to have to make sure you can rely on that. It covers citizen communication in meetings, their participation, and access to town records, and potentially implementing a fee for town records, those kinds of things. So if you haven't already implemented that policy, we do have a sample in our information library under TM 7000. It's just a good way to make sure everybody's on the same page administratively. Also remember that if the township has a AWAIR policy, accident in the workplace policy, that they are reviewed annually to assess if any updates are necessary, and the review should be documented in the meeting minutes. If you do have an AWAIR policy, you are required to do that annually. Doesn't have to be at the reorg meeting again, but it's just a good time to do it to make sure you cover your bases. And then finally, you'll want to verify the availability of training and reference materials for not only the board, but also residents, and make sure that they know where to access information. Let's see. I got a question in the chat to repeat the last document number, and that was TM 7000, I believe, when I was talking about the administrative policy. So that's what that's a document you want to take a look at for that administrative policy. All right, next you want to review town ordinance books and resolution books. All town ordinances must be filed in the ordinance book within 20 days of publication. That's required by statute under 365.125, subdivision 5. If the town has adopted any resolutions, we recommend that you place them in a resolution book so they're easy to access for future township officers and for any residents that want to make sure that they're following those resolutions. So they're easy to get your hands on. Make sure that these books are up to date. Confirm that a copy of the ordinances has been submitted to the county law library as required. And then if you have a feedlot ordinance, you want to make sure that that is sent to the Department of Agriculture. And then towns with planning and zoning. So if you have planning and zoning, not all towns do, many don't, but if you do, you must establish proper procedure to process written requests within the time limits, that 60-day rule outlined in Minnesota Statute 15.99. Make sure those are up to date, and then ensure all zoning fees are properly managed and accounted for and used exclusively for their intended purpose. And then if you have adopted the state building code where you collect development-related fees, that you are filing an annual report with the state by June 30th, detailing those fees and what that looks like. Then you want to cover financial reporting. Verify that the town's financial reporting forms have been completed and submitted to the state auditor's office. Each year, all towns using cash basis accounting must complete a town financial reporting form and provide it to the state auditor. Those forms must be returned by March 31st. Towns using a GAAP reporting system must submit a different report to the state auditor by June 30th. So it depends on which accounting procedure you are using, but if you want to switch accounting procedures, things like that, you'll want to speak with an accountant to help you guys out with that. But the reorg meeting is a good time to make sure that you're getting that reporting done in a timely manner. You'll also want to see what training opportunities are available, not only through our office, but other offices. LRIP has good training opportunities for use of chainsaws, those kinds of things, road maintenance, whatever training opportunities might be coming down the road and relevant to your township. Now is a good time to notice when those are, what those look like, and make sure you budget for those for the township officers to be able to attend. And then selfishly, I'll squeeze in that you want to submit an updated list of officers to our organization by the deadline. This is just a really good way to ensure that new officers specifically are receiving the Township Insider and any email notifications that they'll want to receive. And it's a good way for our office to also know who we're speaking with when they call, and that they are a township officer and not a resident, so that we can keep our files updated. You'll also want to review your insurance policies, whether that's with Matit or a different insurance company. You want to verify that all of the items covered by the township insurance policies are still owned or used by the township. And any newly acquired items are insured under your policy. And then also confirm that those coverage rates are appropriate and still fit the township needs. If you find out that it's not meeting your needs, or the coverage is off, make sure that you contact your insurer or make a plan to do so, whether that be Matit or someone else, and you'll want to add or remove that coverage as needed. And then finally, overall best practices for these reorganization meetings is to prepare an agenda in advance, so that not only the township officers who are participating in the reorganization meeting can have discussion topics and know what we're going to be covering, but also so that residents who are attending this meeting can be aware of kind of what the plan is for the upcoming year for the township and what that will look like. These meetings are a really great opportunity to encourage collaboration, and just make sure that everybody's on the same page for the upcoming year and what the priorities of the township are going to look like for the upcoming year. Make sure that agenda includes regulatory requirements, and if it doesn't include those regulatory requirements, address when those requirements will be discussed in a later meeting, or why they will not be met at this date, but at a later date. And then make sure you record any decision making early and in the meeting minutes, because it's required, but also because it's essential to maintain accountability for the township board. And that's all the agenda items that I have for the reorg meeting, excuse me. If you have questions or concerns, here's my information. I do see a question in the chat. This meeting is being recorded. I missed the first 5 minutes, so I need to go back and watch it again. When is it available to watch? It is available on our YouTube page. I believe it's available also. You can access it through our website. It's usually available within a couple of days, but there's no specific, it's not immediate. Leslie has to upload it onto our webpage, so within the next day or so, it should be available. Are there any other questions? All right, well, if no other questions are there, I will let you guys carry on with your day. Happy New Year. I hope you all have a great day and a great week. Goodbye, everyone.